Osama bin Laden. The very name conjures images of destruction, terror, and a shadow that stretched across the world at the dawn of the 21st century. To many, he became the embodiment of evil, a figure who declared war not on an army or a government alone, but on the very idea of modern civilization. His life story is not just one of man, but of a movement, an ideology that weaponized religion, twisted politics, and left behind a trail of blood that scarred nations. To understand him as a real villain, we must trace his journey from the privileged son of a wealthy family to the mastermind of one of history's darkest crimes, the September 11th attacks, and finally, to the hunted fugitive brought down in the middle of the night by American forces. Born in 1957 in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, Osama bin Laden grew up in a world far removed from the dusty caves and war zones he would later inhabit. He was the son of Mohammed bin Laden, a billionaire construction magnate who built fortunes through close ties with the Saudi royal family. Osama had wealth, security, and opportunity. He could have been an industrialist, a philanthropist, even a reformer in his own society. But instead, he turned toward an austere and rigid vision of Islam that he adopted in his youth. While many young men of his generation sought education abroad or careers in Saudi Arabia's booming economy, Osama immersed himself in religious texts, absorbing a fundamentalist worldview shaped by radical clerics and an obsession with purity, struggle, and sacrifice. The Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979 provided the crucible in which bin Laden's extremist persona was forged. Like many others in the Muslim world, he viewed the Soviet occupation as a call to jihad, a holy struggle. But unlike most, Osama brought money, connections, and organizational skill. He funneled funds from his family's wealth, recruited fighters, and established camps to train what became known as the Mujahideen. Though his actual battlefield role was often exaggerated, it was in Afghanistan that he first tasted the intoxicating idea of defeating a global superpower. The eventual Soviet withdrawal was hailed as a triumph of faith over force, and for Osama, it proved a dangerous lesson, that determination, sacrifice, and terror could humble mighty empires. Out of this period emerged al-Qaeda, the base, which Osama co-founded as both an ideological vanguard and a practical network for training militants. Unlike earlier groups that focused on local battles, Palestine, Kashmir, Chechnya, Osama dreamed bigger. His vision was apocalyptic. He believed the West, especially the United States, was waging war on Islam, and only through global jihad could Muslims reclaim power. Where others sought reform, he sought revolution. Where others sought political compromise, he sought annihilation. Osama bin Laden's villainy was not simply in his violent acts, but in his cold, manipulative ability to cloak those acts in the language of faith. He turned religion into a weapon, exploiting grievances of poverty, foreign intervention, and corruption to recruit young men into his ranks. He twisted sacred texts into justifications for suicide bombings, convincing the vulnerable that blowing up innocents was a path to paradise. His charisma was quiet, his words soft-spoken, but his ideas were poison that spread across continents. By the 1990s, bin Laden had declared the United States and its allies as primary enemies. He issued fatwas calling for the killing of Americans everywhere, framing it as a divine duty. His propaganda portrayed America as an empire of arrogance, exploiting Middle Eastern resources, backing oppressive regimes, and desecrating holy lands by stationing troops in Saudi Arabia. These grievances resonated with some, but where most saw room for political debate, bin Laden saw only one solution: bloodshed. And bloodshed followed. In 1998, al-Qaeda operatives carried out simultaneous truck bombings against U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania, killing over 200 people and injuring thousands. In 2000, the USS Cole, a U.S. Navy destroyer docked in Yemen, was struck by suicide bombers, killing 17 American sailors. Each attack carried bin Laden's signature, a blend of meticulous planning, suicidal devotion, and the deliberate targeting of unsuspecting civilians. These were not acts of war in the traditional sense. They were spectacles of terror designed to send a message. No one, no matter how powerful, was safe. But it was on the morning of September 11th, 2001, that Osama bin Laden cemented his legacy as a true villain of history. 19 hijackers, trained and indoctrinated under al-Qaeda's guidance, boarded for commercial airliners in the United States. 2 planes slammed into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City, reducing them to smoldering ruins. Another struck the Pentagon. A 4th crashed into a Pennsylvania field, brought down by passengers who fought back. Nearly 3,000 people died in a matter of hours. The world watched in shock as plumes of smoke and fire rose into the sky, as desperate victims leapt from windows, and as the towers collapsed with thousands trapped inside. This was not simply an attack on America. It was an attack on humanity. Civilians from over 90 countries perished that day. Children lost parents. Parents lost children. Cities trembled, economies shuddered, and entire societies reeled from fear. And at the center of it all was Osama bin Laden, who later gloated over the destruction as a divine strike against tyranny. What made him truly villainous was not only the scale of the crime, but the cold calculation behind it. He did not care about the innocence of his victims. In his warped logic, their deaths were sacrifices to a greater cause, proof that the mighty West could bleed. In the aftermath of 9/11, bin Laden became the world's most wanted man. Yet even as he went into hiding, he continued to inspire followers. From remote caves in Afghanistan to safe houses in Pakistan, he issued recordings urging Muslims to join his crusade. His image, tall, bearded, draped in simple robes, became iconic for extremists. He was not a man of the people, but he played the role of a prophet of war, calling for endless struggle. To his followers, he appeared as a martyr in waiting. To the rest of the world, he was the architect of nightmares. The United States responded with the war on terror, invading Afghanistan to dismantle al-Qaeda and remove the Taliban, who had sheltered bin Laden. For years, the hunt dragged on. Bin Laden evaded capture, moving across rugged terrain, shielded by loyalists, slipping through intelligence nets. Rumors of his whereabouts spread. Mountain caves, desert hideouts, underground bunkers. His ghostly presence haunted nations. He became less a man and more a symbol, a reminder that ideology could outlive flesh. But villains, no matter how elusive, eventually fall. In May 2011, nearly a decade after the horrors of 9/11, U.S. Navy SEALs stormed a compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. After a brief firefight, Osama bin Laden was killed. His body was taken, his compound destroyed, and his reign of terror symbolically ended. For millions across the world, it was a moment of closure, though not of complete healing. The scars of his crimes, broken families, destroyed communities, destabilized nations, remained. Yet to fully understand his villainy, we must look beyond his death. Osama bin Laden was not a lone madman. He was the face of a broader ideology that still lingers. His real evil lay in the way he legitimized violence as divine will, in how he recruited the poor, the angry, and the lost into a death cult disguised as faith. He built a blueprint for terror networks that outlived him. Groups like ISIS would later draw directly from his playbook. He turned civilian airplanes into weapons, religious devotion into fanaticism, and grievances into global conflagrations. Some argue that villains are shaped by circumstances, by poverty, oppression, or injustice. But Osama bin Laden cannot be excused by context. He was not poor. He was not powerless. He had choices. He could have been a reformer, an advocate, a leader for progress in the Muslim world. Instead, he chose destruction. He chose to kill children in Nairobi, sailors in Yemen, office workers in New York, worshippers in Pakistan, and countless innocents across the globe. He cloaked hatred in righteousness, and in doing so, he became a symbol of how far humanity can fall when blinded by fanaticism. Even today, his name is spoken with a mixture of fear and disgust. He is remembered not as a martyr, but as a murderer, not as a leader, but as a villain. His story serves as a warning that ideology unchecked can become a weapon, that wealth and privilege can be twisted into engines of cruelty, and that one man's obsession can ripple across the globe with devastating effect. In the end, Osama bin Laden's legacy is not one of triumph, but of tragedy. He did not liberate the Muslim world. He did not topple Western civilization. He left behind rubble, widows, orphans, and a world forever altered by the fear of terror. His name joins the ranks of history's darkest figures, a reminder that true villains are not born from poverty or struggle alone, but from the choices they make when power and opportunity are within their grasp. Osama bin Laden chose the path of terror. He reveled in death. He spread fear like a contagion. And though he is gone, the pain he caused remains, etched in the memories of those who lost loved ones, in the skylines rebuilt after devastation, and in the vigilance of nations that still guard against the specter of terrorism. He was not a hero. He was not a martyr. He was, and always will be, a real villain. What do you think? Was he a hero or villain? Please share your opinion in comments.